Every morning begins with a choice. Before the world intrudes, before emails and notifications demand your attention, there is a small window of control, a sacred pause where you decide the kind of day you will live. The speech reminds us that mindset is not something that happens by accident. It is built intentionally, one thought at a time. The way you speak to yourself before the day begins can become the compass that guides your actions, your emotions, and even your relationships. If you start your day reacting, you surrender control. But if you start it with clarity and conviction, you claim your direction. Mindset is not about ignoring reality. It's about shaping how you meet it. When you begin with purpose, your day follows your lead rather than the other way around. The first message that echoes throughout the speech is the importance of seeing purpose in every moment. It's easy to fall into routine, to wake up, go to work, and move through tasks on autopilot. But life begins to transform when you shift your language from I have to I get to. This small change in words carries immense power. I get to reminds you that every opportunity, even the difficult ones, is a privilege. It acknowledges that you are alive, capable, and entrusted with another chance to make something meaningful. Purpose does not always appear in grand gestures. Sometimes it's found in the simple recognition that even small actions contribute to a greater story. Self-talk becomes the foundation for everything else. The way you speak to yourself is the way you train your mind to believe what is possible. Many of us underestimate the weight of our internal dialogue. If you tell yourself you're not enough, your actions will mirror that belief. If you tell yourself you are capable, resilient, and worthy, you begin to act accordingly. The speech insists that positive self-talk is not naive, it's necessary. It's the emotional armor that protects you from doubt and the mental fuel that keeps you moving forward when challenges arise. Every morning affirmation becomes a brick in the fortress of your confidence. Perfectionism often hides behind the illusion of ambition, but it's really a form of fear. The speech confronts this idea head-on, encouraging progress over perfection. It's a reminder that success isn't built overnight and growth doesn't happen in leaps. It happens in steps. Each small improvement, each consistent effort, compounds into something remarkable over time. By letting go of the need to be flawless, you create room to experiment, to fail, and to learn. The pursuit of perfection paralyzes, while the pursuit of progress liberates. Every morning, telling yourself to move forward, however imperfectly, creates unstoppable momentum. Within that journey of progress lies the discipline of valuing your time. The speech challenges you to recognize time not as something to be managed, but as something to be honored. Every hour is an investment in your future self. When you waste time on distractions, you rob yourself of potential. When you use it with intention, you build something lasting. The morning becomes the architect's table where you design your day. It's not about filling hours with activity, it's about aligning them with purpose. Knowing your time's worth empowers you to say yes to what matters and no to what doesn't. Another powerful truth the speech unveils is that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you always control how you respond. This single realization separates those who merely survive from those who lead. Every situation brings two choices: reaction or response. Reaction is impulsive, it's emotional and often destructive. Response is thoughtful, it comes from awareness and strength. By reminding yourself each morning that you are in charge of your response, you reclaim your power. Life will test you, but your composure, your choices, and your perspective remain in your hands. The temptation to compare yourself to others often steals your peace before the day even begins. The speech urges you to remember that you are not behind. Everyone's journey unfolds at its own pace. What looks like overnight success in someone else's life is often the result of years of unseen effort. When you wake up and affirm that you are exactly where you need to be, you silence the noise of comparison and rediscover focus. Trusting your timing means understanding that progress cannot be measured against anyone else's timeline. It's your race, your rhythm, and your growth that matter most. Learning is another recurring theme woven into the message. The speech invites you to adopt the mindset of a lifelong learner, to approach each day with curiosity instead of certainty. When you remind yourself every morning that you are still learning, you stay humble and open. You allow yourself to evolve without fear of imperfection. Every mistake becomes a lesson, and every challenge becomes a classroom. The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. But when you see yourself as an unfinished work in progress, you keep expanding, improving, and discovering. Kindness emerges as both a principle and a strategy for living. Leading with kindness doesn't mean weakness. It means strength under control. It means choosing empathy in a world that often celebrates aggression. The speech reminds us that people may forget what you accomplish, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Starting the morning with an intention to act with kindness sets the tone for every interaction that follows. It's a quiet yet powerful decision that multiplies your influence without ever raising your voice. At the heart of it all is the declaration that you are enough. It is perhaps the most important thing to say to yourself each morning, because without that belief, every achievement will feel hollow and every failure will feel fatal. To tell yourself, "I am enough," is not arrogance, it's acceptance. It's acknowledging that your worth is not dependent on approval, comparison, or accomplishment. It's recognizing that you can grow, improve, and still be worthy in the process. When you start your day grounded in that truth, you don't chase validation, you create impact. The second idea in the speech focuses on the immense shift that happens when you replace the words "I have to" with "I get to." It might seem like a small change, but it's one that alters the entire emotional tone of your day. "I have to" carries a sense of burden, as if life is something you must endure. "I get to" transforms that same situation into a privilege. It reminds you that being alive, being healthy enough to move, work, speak, and think, is not something guaranteed. Every time you choose gratitude over obligation, you turn an ordinary moment into an opportunity to experience purpose. This mental shift doesn't erase difficulty, but it allows you to face difficulty with appreciation rather than resentment. When you wake up and begin your morning with the phrase "I get to," you immediately begin to take ownership of your life. The world often teaches us to look at our circumstances as things that happen to asterisk us, but the truth is that we are active participants in how we interpret those circumstances. Saying "I get to" reminds you that your work, your responsibilities, and your challenges are extensions of your ability to act, to serve, and to grow. It's the difference between dragging yourself out of bed because you must and rising because you can. Gratitude turns the mundane into meaningful, and that small reframing changes the way you approach every task. This perspective invites humility. There are countless people who would give anything to have the opportunities you have, even if they come wrapped in difficulty. To say "I get to" is to recognize privilege not just in material terms, but in the deeper sense of having agency. You have the ability to move your life forward, to make choices, to learn, and to start over. Many of the things that feel like obligations today were once things you prayed or worked for. That job you now call stressful was once a dream. That responsibility that now feels heavy was once a goal you were desperate to achieve. Gratitude doesn't dismiss frustration, but it anchors you to perspective. When you practice this every morning, the effect compounds. The moment you begin to think of challenges as opportunities to grow, your attitude changes. Instead of saying, "I have to go to work," you begin to think, "I get to contribute to something bigger than myself." Instead of saying, "I have to face a problem," you think, "I get to develop the resilience to overcome this." This subtle transformation turns life from a series of demands into a series of choices. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Each statement of gratitude becomes a seed that grows into motivation, clarity, and fulfillment. This shift also has a profound impact on relationships. When you approach others with the mindset of "I get to," you treat people differently, I get to help my team, I get to spend time with my family, I get to listen to someone who needs me. Gratitude softens your tone, opens your heart, and makes you more generous. The people around you begin to feel that energy, and they respond to it. The attitude of appreciation creates connection. It builds trust. It turns obligation into compassion. And it reminds you that service, not status, is where fulfillment lives. There's also a direct connection between gratitude and resilience. When challenges arise, the I have to a mind, set sees them as unfair obstacles. The I get to a mind, set sees them as opportunities to practice strength. Gratitude doesn't erase the difficulty. It gives you the courage to endure it with meaning. Life will always present hardship, but those who approach it with appreciation are the ones who adapt, learn, and keep moving. This is why beginning your morning with this phrase is so powerful. It trains your brain to look for what's possible, not just what's painful. By adopting this language, you also start to see success differently. Success stops being measured by how much you can collect or control, and instead by how deeply you can appreciate. Every responsibility becomes a chance to express your values. Every task, no matter how small, becomes a reflection of gratitude in action. People who approach their lives with this mindset radiate a quiet confidence. They don't need to prove their worth through achievement, because they already understand the value of being able to participate in life itself. Over time, I get to becomes more than a phrase. It becomes a philosophy. It influences how you handle failure, how you celebrate success, and how you treat yourself in between. It helps you recognize that the moments you often rush through are the ones that make your life meaningful. You start to see that the true privilege of living isn't found in what you receive, but in the act of showing up, contributing, and trying again. This mindset transforms not only your mornings, but the entire rhythm of your life. Even in moments of fatigue or discouragement, this idea provides strength. When you're tired, I get to reminds you of your purpose. When you're uncertain, it reminds you of your ability to choose. It centers you in gratitude rather than anxiety. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about seeing that even imperfection carries opportunity. When you view life through that lens, you begin to realize how much abundance already surrounds you. The habit of saying, I get to, every morning is a daily act of perspective. It shifts your focus from complaint to contribution, from pressure to privilege. It's a small change in words, but a massive change in energy. It teaches you that gratitude is not just an emotion. It's a decision you make every day before you step into the world. And in making that decision, you begin to rewrite how you experience your life. The third idea in the speech focuses on the declaration, I am stronger than my excuses. It's a statement that pierces through comfort and self-doubt and exposes the truth we often hide behind. Excuses are clever. They disguise themselves as logic, as fairness, as protection, but at their core, they are barriers we build to avoid discomfort. This phrase challenges that habit. It calls you to look in the mirror and admit that most of the limitations in your life are not external, they are internal. Every time you let an excuse dictate your choices, you trade progress for comfort. The moment you tell yourself you are stronger than your excuses, you reclaim control. Excuses often appear reasonable. I don't have time. I'm not ready. It's too risky. Each one feels justified in the moment because it shields you from the uncertainty of trying. But strength isn't found in comfort, it's found in movement. The mind will always look for the easier path, but the heart knows growth demands effort. When you remind yourself that you are stronger than your excuses, you silence the voice that wants to keep you safe but stagnant. You begin to understand that fear and growth cannot live in the same space. You must choose one. This mindset begins with self-awareness. Every time you make an excuse, there's usually a deeper emotion underneath fear, doubt, insecurity, or fatigue. When you stop long enough to notice that emotion, you can name it and move beyond it. It's not about shaming yourself for hesitation. It's about being honest with it. Strength isn't pretending to be fearless, it's acknowledging fear and choosing to act anyway. The phrase, "I am stronger than my excuses," is not about perfection, it's about persistence. It's a daily reminder that progress begins when the story you tell yourself changes. Once you start recognizing your excuses, you also begin to recognize how much power you've given away to them. You start to see that time wasn't the problem, it was priorities. Readiness wasn't the issue, it was courage. Circumstances weren't the enemy, it was comfort. Excuses steal time, energy, and opportunity. They keep you stuck in the same place while convincing you you're protecting yourself. But growth demands discomfort. Strength is not developed in safety, it's built in the struggle. Every time you choose to act despite your excuse, you train your mind to trust yourself again. The beauty of this mindset is that it redefines failure. When you stop hiding behind excuses, you stop fearing mistakes. You understand that failure is not a verdict, it's a teacher. Excuses are often a way to avoid that lesson, to protect the ego from being bruised. But the only real failure is the one that comes from inaction. Every person who's achieved something meaningful has faced doubt, exhaustion, and fear. But they kept going because they decided their goal mattered more than their excuse. That decision is where strength is born. There's also a quiet liberation that comes with this phrase. Excuses are heavy. They create guilt, regret, and disappointment. When you finally confront them, you release that weight. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or timing, and you take ownership of your choices. That ownership is freeing because it means you are no longer waiting for permission to begin. You start to realize that discipline is a form of self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you strengthen your identity as someone who follows through. In daily life, this mindset shows up in small moments: the decision to get up when you want to sleep in, to finish what you started, to have the difficult conversation, to choose effort over ease. These moments seem insignificant, but they are where character is forged. Strength doesn't come from grand gestures, it's built in quiet acts of consistency. The more you choose action over excuse, the more your brain rewires to associate discomfort with growth rather than pain. Eventually, the things that once intimidated you become your new normal. Excuses often thrive in silence. When you don't challenge them, they grow stronger. But when you speak the truth out loud, when you say, "I am stronger than my excuses," you expose their weakness. You give yourself permission to start before you feel ready, to try even when you might fail, to persist when motivation fades. This internal dialogue shifts the power dynamic. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become a participant in your own transformation. It's not motivation that keeps you moving. It's the decision to act in alignment with your values. Over time, you begin to notice how this mindset ripples into every part of your life. It changes how you work, how you lead, and how you relate to others. You start to expect more from yourself, not because of pressure, but because you've seen what you're capable of when you push past limitation. You start showing up differently, not as someone who needs ideal conditions, but as someone who creates them. You develop integrity, resilience, and quiet confidence. People begin to trust you because you follow through, and you begin to trust yourself for the same reason. The truth is that excuses never disappear. They just lose power when you refuse to feed them. Every morning, when you remind yourself that you are stronger than your excuses, you reaffirm your capacity for growth. You remind yourself that strength is not something you find, it's something you build. Each decision to act becomes proof that you are capable of more than you once believed. And in that daily battle between comfort and courage, you choose courage again and again. The fourth idea in the speech focuses on the phrase, "I choose progress over perfection." It is a statement that reshapes how we approach effort, success, and even failure. Perfection is often disguised as ambition, but beneath it lies fear. the fear of judgment, of inadequacy, of not being enough. It keeps us trapped in hesitation, convincing us that we can't begin until everything is flawless. Progress, on the other hand, is honest. It welcomes imperfection as part of growth. Choosing progress means giving yourself permission to start messy, to learn, and to evolve. It's the acknowledgement that action, not ideal conditions, is what moves life forward. The pursuit of perfection creates paralysis. When you demand flawlessness from yourself, you delay progress because you're waiting for a moment that will never come. You edit your ideas before they even exist. You overthink your next move until the opportunity passes. The idea of progress over perfection dismantles this illusion. It says that starting imperfectly is better than never starting at all. It teaches you that the path to excellence is built through repetition, feedback, and correction, not through endless preparation. Progress doesn't demand perfection, it only asks for commitment. This mindset changes how you view mistakes. When perfection is your goal, every error feels like failure. But when progress is your goal, every mistake becomes information. It's how you learn what works, what doesn't, and what needs adjustment. It's how you build wisdom instead of fear. The most successful people are not those who avoided mistakes, but those who used them as stepping stones. Every attempt, even the flawed ones, adds experience. Progress means valuing motion over mastery and growth over the illusion of control. It's the understanding that nothing improves by standing still. Choosing progress also nurtures resilience. When you no longer expect yourself to be perfect, you allow yourself to recover from setbacks more quickly. You stop labeling yourself as a failure just because something didn't go as planned. Instead, you ask, "What did I learn from this?" That question turns defeat into development. It helps you keep moving forward when others might stop. Resilience is born from the willingness to begin again, to rebuild, and to keep adjusting without losing faith in your potential. Every morning, when you tell yourself to value progress, you strengthen your ability to persevere. This mindset transforms how you experience daily life. You begin to find pride not only in outcomes but in effort. You start to notice progress in your consistency, your discipline, your patience. You start to appreciate the process itself. The person who values progress doesn't need everything to be perfect in order to feel fulfilled. They find meaning in the act of improvement. When you stop chasing perfection, you open space for authenticity. You become more real, more creative, and more human. And people connect with that, because what's real always inspires more than what's polished. Perfectionism often stems from comparison. It grows from the belief that others are doing better, faster, or easier than you. But when you focus on progress, comparison loses its power. You no longer measure your worth by someone else's timeline. You begin to compete only with your past self. Each day becomes a chance to do a little better than yesterday. And that small, sustainable growth creates confidence. Comparison fades because you're no longer seeking approval, you're pursuing improvement. Progress keeps you grounded in your own lane, your own pace, your own journey. Perfectionism also steals joy. It tells you that happiness is reserved for the moment everything is complete, flawless, and validated. But progress invites joy into the journey. It teaches you to celebrate small wins, to find satisfaction in effort, to acknowledge that even one step forward is something to be proud of. Life becomes more vibrant when you stop waiting for perfect moments and start finding beauty in imperfect ones. Gratitude begins to replace judgment, and fulfillment replaces pressure. The process itself becomes the reward. In work, relationships, and personal goals, this mindset creates momentum. When you no longer demand perfection, you're more willing to take risks, try new things, and adapt when necessary. Progress requires flexibility. Perfection demands rigidity. Flexibility allows creativity to flourish. You begin to experiment more, to play with ideas, to take on challenges that once felt intimidating. You realize that consistency beats brilliance, that showing up every day matters more than waiting for the perfect day to begin. Small steps done repeatedly lead to extraordinary results over time. This idea also changes the way you treat yourself. Perfectionism often leads to harsh self-criticism, while progress invites compassion. You start to understand that growth is not linear, that there will be days of forward motion and days of standing still. You learn to be patient with yourself during both. Compassion doesn't make you complacent, it makes you sustainable. It gives you the emotional endurance to keep improving without burning out. The more patient you become with yourself, the more likely you are to keep moving toward your goals. The phrase, "I choose progress over perfection," is a declaration of courage. It's choosing to show up even when you feel unprepared. It's believing that every small effort matters. It's trusting that your potential unfolds through experience, not through flawless execution. Perfection is static. It ends where progress begins. And when you live by progress, you live in motion, always growing, always learning, always becoming a little more than you were yesterday. The fifth idea in the speech revolves around the statement, "My time is valuable." It's a reminder that time is the one resource you can never renew, replace, or recover. Every second that passes is a silent investment, and whether you use it intentionally or carelessly determines the quality of your life. Time is the currency of purpose. You can lose money and make it back, but when you lose time, it's gone forever. Recognizing the value of your time changes the way you think, act, and choose. It forces you to look at your day not as something to survive, but as something to design. When you truly understand how precious your hours are, you stop giving them away to things that don't serve who you're becoming. Valuing your time starts with awareness. Most people are not deliberate about how they spend their days. They drift from one task to the next, reacting instead of leading. But when you begin to see time as your most sacred asset, you start to question where it's going. You begin to measure your activities not by how busy they make you, but by how meaningful they are. Productivity without purpose is just motion without progress. When you learn to guard your hours, you begin to live with intention. The moment you treat time with respect, your life begins to reflect that respect. Every choice you make is a trade. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. The person who values their time understands this exchange and learns to make it consciously. It's not selfish to protect your time, it's responsible. You can't give your best to your work, your relationships, or your dreams if your schedule is filled with distractions. When you start your morning reminding yourself that your time is valuable, you're setting a standard. You're declaring that not every demand deserves your attention, and not every invitation deserves your energy. You choose to invest, not waste. This mindset also reshapes how you view priorities. There's a difference between what's urgent and what's important. The world will always try to pull you toward urgency emails, deadlines, obligations, but the things that build your future often whisper quietly. Growth, creativity, rest, reflection, these rarely shout for attention. When you value your time, you learn to listen to what's important instead of what's loud. You begin to plan your days around what matters most, not just what screams for attention. That's when you start living proactively instead of reactively. Guarding your time is not about control, it's about clarity. When you're clear on your goals and values, decision-making becomes easier. You stop chasing everything because you finally understand what's worth chasing. Clarity gives structure to your day. It helps you recognize that saying no is not rejection, it's alignment. Every no creates space for a deeper yes. When you treat your time as precious, you become more intentional with the people you meet, the projects you pursue, and the thoughts you entertain. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what truly matters. There's also a deep connection between how you value your time and how you value yourself. People who respect their time often carry a quiet confidence because they recognize their worth. They understand that their energy, focus, and creativity are limited resources that deserve careful investment. When you undervalue your time, you invite chaos and distraction. You tolerate what drains you instead of choosing what fulfills you. But when you see your time as sacred, you begin to live in alignment with self-respect. You stop trying to please everyone and start protecting your peace. This mindset extends beyond schedules and calendars. It's about presence. When you value your time, you start to live more fully in each moment. You stop multitasking through your life, and you begin to engage deeply with what's in front of you. You realize that real living doesn't happen in the rush between tasks. It happens in the spaces where you pause, notice, and connect. Time well spent is not about doing everything. It's about being fully alive in what you do. Each moment becomes meaningful when you give it your full attention. Valuing time also means respecting rest. In a culture that glorifies busyness, rest can feel like weakness, but it's actually wisdom. Rest is not the opposite of productivity, it's the foundation of it. When you rest, you recover focus, creativity, and emotional balance. People who truly value their time understand that exhaustion is not a badge of honor. It's a sign of imbalance. Protecting your rest is part of protecting your purpose. The more you honor your need for renewal, the more capable you become of giving your best to the moments that matter most. When you begin to live with time awareness, you start noticing how much of it is wasted on worry, overthinking, and regret. The past is finished, the future is uncertain, and the present is the only space where life actually happens. Valuing your time means refusing to lose today to what's already gone or what hasn't arrived. It's a discipline of presence. It's choosing to pour your attention into what you can shape now. Every minute spent fully engaged in the present is a minute invested in your future. The more you practice this, the more grounded and focused you become. Every morning that you remind yourself, my time is valuable, you reconnect with purpose. You remind yourself that every hour is a choice, every minute is a reflection of your priorities, and every day is an opportunity to create meaning. You begin to see that time isn't just something to fill, it's something to honor. It's the silent measure of your life's direction, and how you spend it determines what kind of life you build. The sixth idea in the speech centers on the phrase, I control my response. It's a truth that sounds simple but carries profound strength. Life is unpredictable, and so much of what happens is beyond our control. People will disappoint us, plans will fall apart, and circumstances will shift without warning. But no matter what happens, one thing always remains yours, the power to choose how you respond. It's in that choice that your peace, your growth, and your integrity live. You cannot always control what life gives you, but you can always control how you meet it. That is where true strength begins. When you accept responsibility for your response, you stop giving power to what you can't change. You stop letting external chaos dictate your internal state. Most people live in reaction. They allow emotions, opinions, and problems to pull them like a tide. But the person who controls their response stands grounded even when everything around them is uncertain. They don't deny emotion. They simply refuse to be ruled by it. Emotional discipline is not suppression. It's mastery. It's the ability to feel deeply yet choose wisely. This mindset doesn't deny that life can be unfair or painful. It simply acknowledges that anger, frustration, and disappointment do not have to become permanent states. You can feel them without becoming them. When someone mistreats you, you can respond with integrity instead of retaliation. When failure comes, you can respond with curiosity instead of defeat. The world tries to provoke reaction, but power lies in the pause. Between what happens and what you do next, there is a moment, a space, and inside that space lives your freedom. Learning to control your response also changes how you view conflict. You begin to see that not every situation deserves your reaction. Some things simply need your silence, your patience, or your distance. Every time you choose not to react impulsively, you preserve energy that can be redirected towards something constructive. You stop wasting time trying to win arguments and start investing that time in winning peace. The more control you gain over your reactions, the less control others have over you. That's when you begin to experience emotional independence. This practice builds character because it requires humility. It's easy to react. It's difficult to pause, reflect, and choose. It requires you to put your ego aside, to prioritize growth over being right. Every controlled response is a decision to act from intention rather than impulse. Over time, this discipline shapes who you are. You become someone who leads through calm rather than chaos, who influences through example rather than noise. It's not about never feeling anger or fear. It's about never letting those emotions make your decisions for you. When you learn to respond with awareness, you also change the energy you bring into your environment. People feel safe around those who are calm under pressure because calm is contagious. The way you respond becomes a silent lesson to others on how to handle difficulty. You become the stabilizing force in a world that often feels unstable. This kind of emotional steadiness creates trust. People begin to look to you not because you have all the answers, but because you don't lose yourself when things go wrong. That is leadership in its purest form. Controlling your response also transforms your relationship with failure. Instead of reacting with shame or frustration, you respond with perspective. You start to see mistakes as feedback, not final verdicts. Every setback becomes an invitation to adapt and improve. When you stop reacting out of fear, you start responding out of purpose. This shift changes everything. It turns obstacles into opportunities and pressure into practice. You become less attached to outcomes and more focused on growth. There's a quiet strength in understanding that your response is always your responsibility. It's not about blaming yourself for everything that happens. It's about owning how you move through it. When you take ownership of your reactions, you reclaim control over your life. You stop waiting for others to change, for situations to improve, for circumstances to align. You become the source of stability instead of the victim of unpredictability. Every controlled response is a declaration that you refuse to be defined by external events. Practicing this awareness doesn't mean you never stumble. There will be moments when frustration wins, when you react too quickly, when emotions override logic. But each of those moments is another chance to practice recovery. You learn to apologize faster, to reflect deeper, to adjust sooner. Control is not perfection, it's progress. Every time you return to awareness, you strengthen the muscle of restraint. The more you train it, the more natural it becomes to pause before you act. When you wake up and remind yourself that you control your response, you prepare your mind for whatever the day may bring. You remind yourself that peace is not found in perfect circumstances, but in intentional reactions. The world may test your patience, but your response defines your character. You may not choose every event, but you always choose your attitude toward it. That quiet power, practiced daily, becomes the foundation for emotional freedom and lasting strength.